love's embrace. Free will, or my will, versus thy will, or divine will. People often ask me, but what about free will? When examined from the mind that thinks it is in charge of everyday decisions and everything it has, one would believe that this concept to be true, but from the concept shared here, from the viewpoint of consciousness, free will doesn't exist. We don't make thoughts happen. They arise out of nowhere and then they fall back into nowhere. Therefore, we aren't choosing them. They just come and go. Even as I write, thoughts are arising within my field of awareness, and some mean nothing and are disregarded. This happens to us all day long. We choose what thought we want to have and what response we want to give to them, but all I'm trying to do is communicate a message into words that point to an experience, but are not the actual experience itself. Only some words I find arising are reliable and others are irrelevant. These words are only meant to direct you to a place where no words are required to live a life of free happiness, because words and thoughts cannot compare to the real experience. Remember, thoughts are good for one thing. They are part of the human experience. Yet it is our fixation and belief in the thoughts being real that is the disillusionment. There is two ways of explaining what is real. Once again, it is from the relative nature of objective content of conscious matter. For example, this body is real. This book is real. Yet in the subjective context of absolute consciousness, what is real means that which is permanent. And that which is permanent means that which doesn't come and go, that which doesn't move. And that which doesn't move and stays is silent conscious awareness. Thoughts, body, and objects come and go. Therefore, they aren't real. Silent consciousness and awareness remain the same, unmoving, ever present, and eternal. Thoughts are entertaining and therefore keep us occupied while in the human experience. Our mind is organically created to evolve, educate, and create. Therefore, the mind thinks this is its purpose. This is true at one level of evolutionary intelligence, as it has got us to the place where we live today in a Western culture with the comfort, safety, and health. Once again, it's not the thoughts that are the problem, but the time and energy we put into believing them and their importance in this life. Thoughts, just like drugs, become addictive. And we become addicted to the thoughts because of the biochemical response that we receive from our thoughts and the feelings that come with them. Fearful, stressful, and negative thoughts drop the powerful hormones of adrenaline and cortisol into the body, which over time creates an addiction to the rush of these chemicals. But once they wear off, they leave us feeling empty and needing more. The mind can't cope with that level of emptiness, and it labels it as boring. If we turn the belief around that says empty is boring into empty is expansive and liberating and my true nature, a massive shift can change. And to use the emptiness as an opportunity to be present and enjoy the simplest and ordinary moments of life. Spiritual practices such as meditation and yoga helps us to tame down the wild mind by bringing us into presence and silence. Practices such as my teachings of Absolute Soul help eliminate negative thoughts or feelings by choosing to introduce an object of attention that calms and charms the mind, allowing it to settle down to more universal and silent levels of functioning. When the constant chattering of the internal dialogue is stilled, union with the higher self is returned to its natural state, and so too is the body. Meditation allows us to let go of fixations and attachments to form, name, identity, personalities, emotions, thoughts, ideas, beliefs, words, and the distracting identification of the senses. All of these things relative to the human experience. In order to experience the absolute, we need to find a way to help us discover. When the boundaries and the labels of the human condition fall into the silent background of empty, still consciousness, you experience your true nature, that which is no one, no body, no thing, nowhere, in no time. In that place, unbounded, unlimited, eternal omnipresence, the infinite source of love and bliss. It is from this state of consciousness that we merge into a powerful source of our unification with the divine will. It is from here that we can then create a life of ongoing joy, love, peace and happiness. The new biochemical response that comes with the calming effect of peace are the happiness hormones of dopamine and serotonin. Free will is when we create from the stress hormones, whereas divine will is where we become co-creative with the universal source of love consciousness, our soul's true nature. Unfortunately, we can also become addicted to the happiness hormones that we receive through some spiritual practices. When we begin the spiritual search, we find other ideas, ways, theories and practices to entertain the mind because all the old paradigms don't satisfy it anymore. Yet the same thing will eventually occur with our spiritual programs because they will eventually bore the mind, the ego, or the spiritual ego, and they will move on and continue to seek to find another and then another until it is so exhausted from seeking that it finally stops. The seeking is also part of the habit of thought addiction. When we stop seeking, we get a momentary glimpse by the witness that can show us how much we have been mesmerized for so long. When union and integration of the absolute conscious intelligence of the soul into the human intelligent mind is embodied, freedom in every living moment is achieved. The mind can never help us figure out how to become enlightened, happy or at peace, as that refers to it being somewhere else other than where it really is, which is right here in this present moment. Not following the conditioned mind, but quietly watching things arise and fall away. While ever we look to it for the answers, we will never get them. Once again, it isn't something we get to. It is only something that can be experienced. We can be fully participating in every moment of life from the space of consciousness. From here, we are able to open and embrace absolutely every event and experience from open-hearted compassion, humility, and joy, without once disassociating, running from, or avoiding any single thing. We can love everything, the good and the not so good. It is only the mind that wants to run from things that makes us feel uncomfortable. The soul sees things as ever-changing and evolving, but doesn't avoid or tell stories in order to satisfy itself as anything other than the presence of love. Even chaos is witnessed by the soul as a perfectly natural part of the evolutionary impulse of change and natural unfolding. It notices chaos and patiently watches the mysterious underlying perfection of consciousness unfolding in order to continue to know itself as ever-present growth and magnificence. The mind can be like a naughty child or a good child, and as its parent, it's up to us to acknowledge its behavior. The mind is like a monkey jumping from tree to tree, being mischievous and never stopping. Once again, judgments and thoughts of good, bad, better, worse, etc. will still arise in the mind, but all we need to do is watch them, choose correctly, not attach to them, not tell more stories about them, and eventually they will lose power over the mind, and then the thoughts will begin to flow with more ease. It is because the negative thoughts are embraced by the witness that this occurs, because the witness is spirit, and the essence of spirit is the unconditional, divine love of the ground of being, the infinite source of all that is. If our children were being mischievous, wired up, or misbehaving, we would only tell them that their behavior is not acceptable, but we still love you. If we remember that our mind, when reacting from fear of being unloved, unworthy, or unappreciated, is just a projection of patterns played out from our subconscious memory, from ourselves as young children, we would soon begin to understand that all that is ever required is for us to love those thoughts, the same as we would unconditionally love a child who is innocent and scared of rejection and abandonment. This is not about just accepting our thoughts and feelings, but meeting them fully with the presence of love that we would give a child that is lost and scared of not feeling loved and safe. If we saw a little child crying in the street because it couldn't find its parents, we would stop and reassure the little child that it is safe, and we will help them find their parents for them. Once finding the parent and reconnecting the child, witnessing their joy and love, we do the same thing when we meet our own subconscious fearful reactions. When we meet our subconscious inner trauma with love and acceptance, it frees it up of having to replay old patterns of mistrust. The more we watch over our arising subconscious thoughts and feelings from a place of curiosity, the more we're able to fully sense and know its story and its purpose as a gift rather than as a burden. What if absolutely nothing was personal, but everything was an opportunity to know our divine true nature? That is why the mind is not bad. It is an equal part, divine part of the plan for awakening for humanity. Even the mystery of the mind is so wise that every thought that occurs is leading and directing you home. And this is why there is no free will, as it is occurring in the mystery of an unknowable wisdom and intelligence occurring to us and not by us. When viewed from this place, the mystery of the divine is intriguing, so explicit, so integrative, so intimate, and so much more intelligent than man's mind could fathom. And until one day we wake up to it and see its incredible intelligence that leaves us humbled and surrendered, we will never discover its magnificence.